Back in Unit 4, we learned that after World War I, soldiers returning home from war had a temporary struggle trying to find work. There was high unemployment, the economy suffered, but that it very quickly turned into a consumer-driven economy. People returning from war wanted to get back to their regular lives, and the Roaring Twenties resulted. The 1950s is very similar. Soldiers returning home from World War II don't suffer near the same unemployment rates as after World War I because there were many policy changes guaranteeing a soldier his job back after returning from war, but the similarity is still there and that economic growth resulted immediately following the war. President Eisenhower knew that in a nuclear age there was a need for an interstate highway system. He knew that the United States needed this interstate highway system. That way people could escape major urban areas quickly if there was the threat of a nuclear strike because of the Cold War. But the Interstate Highway Act also contributed to economic growth because now there's better transportation for supplies to be moved around the country. So, yeah, it has a national security purpose, but it also helps grow the economy. Like we already said, soldiers returning home from war are ready to settle down, buy a house, buy a car, have a family, so the baby boom results. This is rapid growth in population following World War II, and it leads to consumerism, an economy based on consumer spending. The baby boom means more people working the economy, producing more goods, and also spending more money. You can see in the photographs here a radio, a record player, an early model television, a suburban community, and a nice new car. These are all items that people in the 1950s consumer economy would be buying. Immigration had been more of a European and Asian trend prior to World War II, and after World War II, there are much higher rates of immigration from Latin America. And that is because the consumer economy meant there was more economic opportunity in the United States than there was in many Latin American countries. So many Latin Americans are coming to the United States for more economic opportunity. Today, it's very controversial that immigrants often come into the United States illegally seeking economic opportunity. Due to the baby boom, the question rises, are some social programs unsustainable? The Social Security Act we already learned about in the Great Depression unit, and this gave money to the elderly to live off of in retirement. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson, and we'll learn about this in a little more detail when we get to the Johnson presidency, passes the Medicare and Medicaid Acts into law. This gives health insurance benefits to the elderly and to the poor, respectively. These programs, as baby boomers are growing older and older, and the workforce shrinks as compared to the baby boomer population, these are often considered unsustainable by many economists as a result. Here's a chart showing that assuming the government receives an average tax revenue of about 18% of the GDP, which is gross domestic product, that by the year 2049, entitlements will surpass the gross domestic product, meaning that all wealth created in the United States in a year, all of that wealth will not be able to cover the costs of entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid by the year 2049. Now that doesn't mean that if there's a growth in the number of people working, that this number would not be reached in 2049. It could be much later. If for some reason the number of people working were to shrink, this could happen a lot sooner than 2049. So there's a lot of variables that don't make this a definitive factual thing to say in exactly 2049 entitlements will eat up all wealth in the United States, but it's also a major concern and it's a major topic of conversation in political campaigns, especially presidential campaigns. This is the end of the presentation. Please make sure that you go back and take the online quiz. Use your notes. If you use your notes, there's really no reason why you can't get a perfect score. Thank you. See you in class.